Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is a family adventure featuring an epic journey across the jungle of the back garden. The film is a childhood favourite with memorable characters and exciting set pieces that make use of its premise. We are excited to revisit it and see just how well it holds up today. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
And I'm feeling a little bit small today.
Why is that, Peter?
I wasn't actually fishing for you to say anything, but I like that you stepped in and thought he may be wanting me to respond to that before he moves on. I better jump in.
I was gonna leave you hanging.
Yeah.
This time.
To make up for the other, several dozen times that you have left behind.
That's what I do.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together and we talk about a sci-fi movie. That is the show. It's that simple. And this episode, we are tackling a vote winner over in patreon.com/MailFuzzTV every month. The patrons at a certain tier and up get to vote on a movie between a few options, and the winner for less is actually last month's, because we were so behind on doing the other stuff that we had to put this off for a little bit. But we are finally doing Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which won the family sci-fi vote. It was all like family and the young kid appropriate movies, which we don't tend to skew towards, but just because inherently we're like, we want to do cerebral sci-fi, we want to do dark horror sci-fi or stuff. So
I mean, I guess I've been wanting to do them.
Okay.
You sort of did them in the beginning, and you're like, I don't like doing this, and folded your arms, be like, Tara made me watch Rocket Man or whatever.
That wasn't because that was a family movie. That was just because it was a dumb movie.
Rocket Man is great. You shut your mouth.
It was Meet the Robinsons. I had some caveats over.
That movie's sweet.
I was tricked into an animated film.
We'll do more animated films.
We will.
What are you talking about?
I had no complaints with doing WALL-E, but I felt tricked with that one. I didn't know it was animated. You're like, we need to do Meet the Robinsons, and I didn't know what it was. So I was like, okay, fine, we'll do Meet the Robinsons. And I'm like,
Whatever, dude.
This is some kiddie animated shit. What is this? What have you got me into?
Stuff you watched when you were a kid.
I was 18 when that movie came out. Anyway.
So?
Anywho, so yeah, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is a movie that I did grow up with. It's a movie that I assume you grew up with as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. The entire trilogy, in fact, I grew up with. So.
Not me. Although I'm a big fan of the second film, I don't think I've ever seen the third one.
Yeah, no, I saw the third one. Maybe that's just because I've got a couple of years on you, under you, whatever the phrase would be.
I believe I have a couple of years on you. But
there you go.
Also, I think it was a straight to DVD release, so I don't think I ever had it.
Yeah, it may have been straight to video, the third one, but yeah. So, but obviously the first one was the one that tended to get the most praise and that's watched the most by many.
I have seen another one that you haven't seen, Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, which was an attraction at Disneyland, and I think other Disney parks had it as well.
Oh, sure.
But it's like a 30-minute show, or maybe less than that, like 20-minute show with Rick Moranis, and the mother and the son are in it as well, and the dog.
Yeah, I have heard of the Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. All right, let's see if I can top you. I watched the TV show.
I did not watch the TV show.
Aha. Well, there you go. But we're here today to talk about the first movie. Now, do we do the rest of the movies? We might do them maybe as bonus episodes on Patreon, or if there's enough of an outcry, people demanding that they get the sequels, maybe we'll do them on the main episodes.
Maybe. I mean, the second one was a theater release. It was kind of a big movie. Big movie.
Is that a pun? Yeah, you try to be coy there, Tara.
It was an accident.
Uh-huh.
But I accept it.
So was Blowing Up the Kid and Shrinking the Kids, for that matter.
Yep.
So yeah, the premise of How I Shrunk the Kids, obviously we'll start spoiler free in case you haven't seen it and you don't want to be spoiled about the big things, but the main premise, of course, is kind of what the title says. Rick Moranis plays Wayne Selinsky, who is a scientist and inventor who's trying to come up with a shrink ray, and he can't quite get it to work, but lo and behold, an accident means that it ends up working and shrinks not only his own 2 kids, but the neighbor's 2 kids as well. So we get, basically, it's an adventure going through the back garden, because he inadvertently sweeps them up into the trash, takes them out, and their trash is behind their backyard, and they cut themselves out of it, and it's just a journey back to the house from the edge of the garden. But because they're tiny, they're less than an inch tall, even less than that. I think at one point, what's the kid's name?
Nick.
At one point he says they're about an inch, and I'm like, you're way smaller than an inch.
I think it's a quarter of an inch.
Okay,
that's what they shrink to.
I could buy a quarter, maybe. I didn't get the measuring tape out, but like, given how big they are compared to like the magnifying glass and the broom and things, like, it's like, nah, you're definitely less than an inch. So, like, you'd be way more noticeable an inch. You notice an inch, you notice something that size.
Sure.
Yeah. But they're like, teensy weensy. Yeah.
I think that was actually the original title of the movie, was like the Teeny Weenies or something.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll get into some of the background of the movie, because there's some interesting names attached to this.
Yeah.
So we'll get into all that. But before we get to all that, that's the general premise. So you've got Wayne and his wife having, slightly... And I say slightly troubled. It's troubled for a kids movie. They've got a slightly troubled marriage for a kids movie, and you've got the neighbors who
Very noticeable.
Yeah, and you've got the neighbors who, like, he's like the sports jock type dad who wants his son to be a football player. So there's some comedy on how different they are from the Selinskis, because they're like super weird and like likable but nerdy and whatever. Well, Wayne is. I mean, the wife's just kind of normal, but she's married to him, so inherently she gets lumped.
Extra normal, actually, I would say, yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. That is the basic premise. We've both rewatched it, I presume, for the first time in a while.
Yeah.
With this. So how did it hold up for you, Tara?
Excellent. I love this movie. It's so fun. Such a cool premise. I definitely enjoyed watching it as a grown-up this time, because I think the last time I watched it was like even before like puberty. So like I really only identified with like Nick in the movie before. And now like I have many more different experiences, and I actually was I really enjoyed the relationship between the adults in the movie a lot more than I expected to, because other than Wayne Selinsky, it's always like get to the kids stuff,
Yeah.
But not this time. I actually really enjoyed the rivalry of the two families and stuff.
It's kind of what really makes it a family movie as opposed to just a kids movie, is that the other stuff actually works quite well as for the adults, like in the way that they're playing off of each other, and like them thinking Wayne's weird because they see him doing weird stuff, and we know why he's doing it, so like we understand, but it does look really goofy and silly and stuff. Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. Like, it's something that I liked a lot growing up. I watched it a ton as a kid, and the sequels. I mean, I watched the second one a lot because I liked that, and then the third one came later, so I only saw that a few times maybe, but I don't think it's as good as the first two, and the second one's not as good as the first one. Like, I mean,
I remember really enjoying the second one, but because I was a bit older.
Yeah,
sure.
I did as well, but like, I've got a funny feeling that it's not going to be as good as a movie if we watch it now versus the first one.
Yeah.
For a variety of reasons.
It's a very different type of movie, right? Because this movie, you have the whole, jungle of the life of the small, versus, the sequel. It's about a baby that's like 40 feet tall.
Yeah, it's basically a kaiju. It's a kaiju movie, basically.
It's a monster film, with a baby.
So yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. I enjoyed a lot of the performances. Like, I feel like one of the things that hurts a lot of modern movies that focus on kids is that I find modern kid characters, maybe the actors are at fault here nowadays, maybe they find good kid actors anymore, maybe they're just written differently than they used to be. But I actually enjoyed all the kids in this movie, and I especially thought they had a nice difference between them all, but I liked how they all like came to the like how they all portrayed the characters. Like, Little Russ is the little brother of the neighbors, right? So no, Little Russ is the older brother, sorry. The younger brother is Tommy.
I actually forgot. Tommy. Okay,
Yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah. So he's like the snot one who's like, you know, he calls Nick a nerd. He's probably the most immature of the bunch, kind of thing. Like, even he's kind of likable in the way he bounces off people and sort of like, you know.
Oh, totally. I loved him in the movie this time. He might have been the standout for me, actually.
Yeah, I thought Amy was really good as well. Actually, I thought like she like. As the movie progresses, she has a couple of good moments where she starts sort of fighting back with Tommy, and like just like the shit-eating grin on her face as she does certain things as she's starting to fight back. I thought was really amusing. So I thought there was a lot of good stuff there. If anything, it's probably a little Russ, who I like his character and kind of like the way he plays off his father and stuff, and I think there's a good sort of reason for him. But he's probably the most bland one, and he's meant to be just the more normal kid who probably has the crush on the other girl, right? You know, on the teen girl. So he's kind of the most normal, plain one, in a sense.
I probably felt that way when I was a kid watching it too. But yeah, I thought Tommy and Nick were like the standouts, and Amy. Yeah, you're right. Amy was really good in this too. I definitely enjoyed watching her stuff. You know, as a woman who went through puberty and like understood this movie a bit more from her perspective versus like when I watched it when I was a kid and like boys were gross. Yeah,
she's got like a few teen girly tropes, but they're not like super heavy. You know, like she wants to go to the mall and meet a boy, but it's never like so heavily focused on that it feels like it's, you know, oh, she's a super, you know, archetype of a character. It's like it's just enough that it feels like a believable amount.
No, she still feels more like a big sister than anything else in the movie.
Yeah, so no, that's good. And then the adults are great. I don't think I ever realized that Matt Frewer played the neighbor, because I know him as like a bald guy from later things, because he's got a completely shaven head now, and he's popped up in different things. But he's really good in this. Yeah. He's got like a bunch of. There's a few moments actually where, because this is before Jim Carrey became big, and there's a few moments in this where he talks really quick. There's a speech he gives to Russ about playing football, where he just talks really fast, and it sounds like Jim Carrey. It sounds like he's doing a Jim Carrey bit where Jim Carrey would talk really fast.
This is about the time of Jim Carrey, like coming into the scene.
Yeah,
not on the rise yet, but like.
He definitely existed, but this was like before Ace Ventura. It was before like his movies kind of shot him into the stratosphere, you know. Like I think he'd already popped up at this point. I think maybe it was the same year.
He might have been in like In Living Color at this point.
Yeah, I think this is the same year that Deadpool came out, which is the last Dirty Harry movie. I think he's in that, and that was like one of his first movie roles. So, but he's not funny in that. He's like a goth rock musician or something stupid. Like he's not
weird.
Yeah, so he's not Jim Carrey in that movie. You know, he's just like a dude. But so it's just kind of funny the timing. I was getting some sort of impressions from him of that. But he's really funny. His wife's played by Kristine Sutherland, who of course played Joy Summers on the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So there's some. I looked her up
because I thought she was somebody else.
Yeah, there's some pre-Buffy royalty in this. There's also a little bit of Twin Peaks royalty, which again was right around the time that was happening, because this is 1989, and I think Twin Peaks, maybe it debuted in 1990, may have been just slightly later, but it's, you know, it's around the same time. But Lucy from Twin Peaks she's not got a big role, but she's the wife of the guy who's going to go on the trip with Big Russ. You know, they only have one scene where they pull up in the camper, and then Russ has to say, "Oh, sorry, we can't go."
Yeah, I want to say she's like a comedic actress. She's definitely been in something else that I've seen.
She's definitely been in other stuff, but like, that's the main thing I know her from is Twin Peaks. So yeah, there's a few notable faces. Obviously Rick Moranis, been in a bunch of stuff. I suppose most people will probably know him otherwise from Ghostbusters if they don't know him from this.
Spaceballs, Dark Helmet.
Yeah. I've not seen Spaceballs. I can't comment.
That's so weird.
Look,
Spaceballs is so part of the zeitgeist. It makes fun of a movie that you like. Well, you like Star Wars, but you also like making fun of it.
Once we've done the Star Wars movies, we can do Spaceballs.
Come on, we can just start with Spaceballs. You've seen all the Star Wars movies, and you're never going to want to start them.
No, we have to do them at some point. I fully acknowledge we have to work through all the Star Wars movies at some point on this show. I accept that. And I'm not saying we have to do all of them, but we have to do the original trilogy before we do Spaceballs, because that's presumably when it was making fun of them.
Well, you can still watch it at any time.
I'm not going to.
I don't hold movies hostage just because we have a sci-fi show.
I'll wait until it's for the show. I'm in no rush. It's fine.
Whatever.
Like, maybe I'll like it. I might be into it. I don't know.
There's so many good quotes in that movie that we could share on the show.
Like, if it's half as good as the first Naked Gun movie, I'll be happy with it. Okay, but that's a lot to live up to, right?
There's Planet of the Apes references in it. I mean, it doesn't just make fun of Star Wars.
Oh, I'm sure. Like all those sort of spoofs, they have like a central thing they're making fun of, but they'll still splinter off and do other things as well as they go on.
But this is when they were good.
Oh, I know. Yeah, they got really bad, obviously, in the 2000s. All the cast are really good. It made me kind of sad, because there's no reason, because I've definitely, when I've been older, maybe not recently, but I definitely tried some more kid-focused movies that I thought might appeal to me because I liked stuff like this when I was younger. I remember watching a movie called Aliens in the Attic when it came out. Not in the theater, but when it came, when it came out at home, I was like, oh yeah, that seems like the sort of fun kids movie I would like, because I liked this sort of stuff when I was a kid. And I remember just not really getting it from it. I was just I don't know, is it because I'm old? And I don't think it is, because I think this still works. I think it's just the techniques and the way they write kid characters and the way they write movies for kids and families it's just changed a bit, I think, over the few decades, and sadly I just don't think it's the same anymore.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of things have gotten better, though. I mean, especially in the animated world. I mean, we got Pixar.
Oh, sure.
And you like the How to Train Your Dragon films a lot. There's still a lot of good family movies that I think have improved over the last few decades. But I don't think we get a lot of this type of, practical effect stuff. Or maybe we're just, we don't have kids, so we're not exposed to it. There are some people who really like the made for TV, Disney Channel stuff from, I want to say the early 2000s that we were probably too old for, or didn't just have the channel, that I think a lot of people really like. But yeah, this kind of reminds me of just, I think I like this one the best out of the kid adventure films. I like this more than Goonies. You may disagree, but
I disagree with that. I think Goonies is a better film, but
I think this one's more fun. I also like that this movie is kind of like a horror film. It doesn't shy away from putting the kids in real danger, and anything could kill them. I mean, there's a scene later on in this movie that might be the worst death possible to anyone, but it's still a kids movie, so things go okay. But it is a very scary film for a kid, I think.
Oh no, hold on. By the way, correction: the younger brother is named Ron.
Ron.
Steve is the grass cutter.
Yeah, but who's Tom? You said his name was Tommy.
Tommy. Tommy's the grass cutter.
You said Steve. Who's Steve then?
Well, I wasn't saying Steve earlier. Steve I just said there. Ignore Steve.
Okay.
I said his name was Tommy earlier. Tommy's the grass cutter. The little brother from next door is Ron.
Okay, that sounds more right.
Yeah. For whatever reason, his name just didn't stick. I watched the movie twice this week because we delayed the recording, and his name just never stuck.
Yeah, I don't know. With
weird.
me neither. And I watched this movie so much when I was a kid. Definitely wore out the VHS.
Yeah. Whereas Amy's name sticks out because Nick's constantly saying Amy.
Yeah, and she's constantly yelling Nikki.
Yeah.
And Russ, because Big Russ, Little Russ.
Yeah, they're constantly saying, even just the stuff near the start where he's like, Russ, you ready for Russ? We're fishing, Rush. Yeah, you ready? He's constantly saying his name.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But anyway, I love it as an adventure movie. I do like that it kind of takes this idea of what are all these normal things that are not a threat normally, but are because you're tiny, and sort of plays with that. Oh, this looks like a river. It's probably just some dog piss, but it looks like a river when you're that size.
Right.
Just simple little ideas like that. I appreciate. If anything,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, if anything, the only thing that is a little disappointing to me is, and this is just because the opening title sequence is this a cartoon title sequence where it shows the cartoon kids in all these situations. is that shows a lot of stuff inside the house, and I think I've always been a little disappointed that there wasn't a little bit more antics of like them dealing with like the living room and it's just other locations in the house, and dealing with that, which is funny enough. I think what actually the third movie mostly does, because it's not the kids, it's like the adults.
Because they don't want to do the same thing twice, and you don't have to, because like you said, like anything becomes like a jungle, or just everything is a threat no matter where they are.
Yeah, the plot.
So if you're inside a house, you have to worry about footsteps.
Yeah. The plot of the third one, from what I remember, is obviously they shrink themselves. It's it's Wayne, Diane, and like another couple of adults who they know get shrunk, and it's actually like their teenage daughter, who I think was the baby in the second one. I think that's what they were going for. She throws like a party with some friends because the house is empty, so they're trying to like get the teenagers to notice them whilst they're all faffing about being idiot kids. Like, so that's the premise, if I recall. A little bit dodgy because I believe it starred a young Alison Mack, who we don't like to talk about anymore because she did a lot of heinous things.
Oh.
Yeah. Did you hear about this? You know what I'm talking about?
Is she the Nixium one?
Explain what that is.
Nixium is the sex cult?
Yes. I just didn't remember the name of the cult. Yes. This is the genital branding sex cult. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So look forward to that, honey. We shrunk ourselves. We'll elaborate. So yeah, good cast, good adventure, practical effects. There's obviously a couple of fun kind of optical effects as well that are kind of old school, because this was right before CG started to really kind of start. I mean, it was in the abyss already, or the same year, but obviously
there's a lot more stop motion in this than CGI.
Yeah. I don't even know if there's any. I mean, there's technically some CGI, but nothing we would think of as like, proper CGI where you're doing like creatures or anything. Yeah. They've built these sets that are like, giant grass leaves or.
It's so cool. The one thing I can think of is when Disney California Adventure opened, they had a Bug's Life land, which you could walk around and you're like the size of an insect in the land. So like they do have the giant blades of grass and flowers and mushrooms, and it does it is a cool feeling, or even now it's been replaced with Avengers Campus, and they have like Pym's section. So like Professor Pym from Ant-Man is there, or like his creations are there. So like there's a whole restaurant with like really large things. So like a ketchup and mustard station is just oversized. If you look up, you'll see like they're coming from a giant ketchup and mustard like regular size dispenser on any kind of cafe table. Or like the drinking fountains, if you look up, it's just a bunch of opened cans with hoses coming out of them, and they're all giant and stuff. So it kind of puts you in that world still. It is just a cool feeling.
Yeah. So no, it's a good fun time. What actually stuck out to me about the music is it's a really good upbeat kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's not jazzy, but it's got like a lot of like horns and like trumpets in it, and it's kind of got this upbeat vibe to it. What's funny about it is that it was making me think, and this came out later, so I'm sure if anything this other movie ripped this off in terms of score, but the main theme was really reminded me of the main theme from the Super Mario Brothers movie, because that has a very similar kind of vibe. When they're driving about Brooklyn, and this like kind of, I don't know, like happy horn is playing as they're driving. I don't know, it was making me think of that. You mentioned it kind of like, veering into sort of slight horror at points, and that's probably a good time to talk about who was going to direct this originally.
I know.
This is, well, I only found out this recently from Tim, of all people. But
I saw it in the opening credits because they're so cool, so I watched them this time.
yeah, because they're still listed as producers. But Stuart Gordon of Reanimator and like other movies of that type was going to direct this, and left the movie. But him and Brian Usna, who is his longtime producer, are still listed in the credits as executive producers or whatever. So
and story by,
yeah. And I think what's funny knowing that is that if you've seen Reanimator and some of their other films, I think you can kind of see their sense of horror and humor kind of still in this. I mean, it's obviously more family friendly in this,
Yeah.
but I could easily see how the guys who wrote Reanimator wrote this and how it kind of became this more, because it really is a family friendly Stuart Gordon movie in a lot of ways, except it's not directed by him.
Yeah.
It's directed
I would
by.
love to see like the original screenplay for this.
Oh yeah, see how much darker it
I'd be
is.
so curious. Yeah, see how it got Disneyfied, for this version of the film. But I'd be so curious because there's a lot that just feels like, yeah, I mean, it's mad scientist, but for kids,
Yeah, or maybe it was always meant to be kid. Maybe because it was at Disney, when they were still going to work on it. So I wonder if maybe they were applying their own skills to a family movie, and I can still see how it is that. Like, it is just them taking what they do and applying
I
it to
tried
this.
look it up. Someone wrote an article when Stuart Gordon passed away about how, apparently there was a scene cut out of the screenplay where he wanted to have a bunch of severed heads at one point. I don't know how that fits in, but so yeah, I guess it was going to be darker. And also, like, the reason he didn't do it was because he got really ill. He couldn't do it.
Tim told me he left because he was like upset about the title change because he wanted the previous title. He didn't want Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Like Teensy Weensies or something.
Yeah, something like that. Which is a bit silly because I actually do think Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is a better title.
It's a great title, yeah.
It's-
I mean, we grew up with it, so maybe we're just like, that is the title, and it has to be that. But
it's far more. It sticks out more. It's far more memorable.
it tells you what you're dealing with too. I mean, teeny weeny, like they could be, like Indian in the cupboard or something lame,
Well, Teeny Weeny still sounds alright. It still
I don't
fits the
even know if
movie.
that's it. It's something like that,
Yeah.
but I don't know what that is.
But Honey, I Shrunk the Kids just sticks out more because it's got more of a sense of humor to it. It takes you on a bit of a journey in the title on its own. But I can totally see when I watch this how this is a kid version of a Stuart Gordon movie, and how some of the set pieces they encounter could have been a little bit darker, or how you do slightly more over the top things with it. Obviously part of me is like, I kind of wish I'd seen the Stuart Gordon version as well as a fan.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But at the same time, I'm still glad this exists as it does, because this is actually still a very good example of the type of movie that it's trying to be. And I did love this as a kid. I thought this was a blast when I was growing up, and it still holds up pretty well now. So
I could see you could put Herbert West in the role of Zelensky. Just replace them like this is Herbert West's family.
I think if Stuart Gordon still directed it, I would believe that one of the kids may have died.
Actually, that is something that I read in the trivia, was that originally it was going to have 5 kids and one of them died.
Yeah, probably made the right choice.
I mean, yeah, this is way more family friendly. There's still a death in this, and it is devastating.
Yeah. So, no, obviously the sets, the playfulness of having these giant versions of things for them to play off of is super fun. I particularly like the through line once Wayne realizes relatively early on what's happened and that there's probably somewhere in the garden. His attempts to not step on the grass because he might step on them, even though they could just as easily be on anything else as well. It's a good chance they're in the grass, but what, for all you know, they've already made it to the step, and you're stepping on that,
Yeah, it does seem pretty unlikely.
Yeah,
because that is a long way for them to travel.
Yeah, but there's moments later on though where he's looking for them and he's sort of going through the grass, but he's also putting his elbows down as he does it, and I'm like, your elbows down, they could be there.
The mom also makes some really crucial mistakes in this.
Oh yeah. I love the idea that half of the plot turns into a game of lava, but not because it'll hurt them, but because they might step on their children and kill them.
Right.
And that's kind of a fun idea. So, really good stuff. So I guess we'll give the spoiler warning so we can start talking about specifics and moments and scenes and working our way up through some of the jokes and whatnot. So full spoilers for Honey, I Shrunk the Kids from this point forth. So for some reason, there's just certain things that always stick out in your memory, and I always remember 2 things about the opening of this movie. I remember the dog Quark, who, funnily enough, I'd forgotten the dog's name was Quark, and obviously I'm watching Deep Space Nine, so I got a chuckle out of that. But he's got his own like sort of dog food dispenser that you can activate because Wayne has invented it. And the other thing is just how badly Amy burns the breakfast. That is just something that's ingrained into my head. Is her like putting the black toast, and like Nick just being like, I'm on a diet.
The thing I always remember is just the neighbor's dad. Like, he really was a standout when I was young. I think I was afraid of him.
Yeah,
he was just so intense, you know?
Yeah, one of the distinct memories I always had of him was the feather or whatever it is stuck to his head. Or his finger at one point because he's like getting his fishing stuff ready. Yeah, I always remember that, and just those kinds of antics. But it's one of those movies where I saw it so much as a kid that all of it comes flooding back as I'm watching it. You know, I'm just remembering things right as they're happening or right before they happen, and getting thrills out of all these moments. What I never noticed as a kid, or didn't remember at least, was when Amy shouts up that breakfast is in, you know, is here, it's ready, he'll come down, and he's still working on the machine. He's like developed like a device where he can send little telegrams down, and he types out "be there in 5 minutes," but he completely typos it, and I'm like, I don't remember like that that joke.
Yeah, he's developed some sort of paging system, but it's just in the house, like an intercom system you would have.
Yeah. Here's a question, right? See if this movie was made today, and they got shrunk, and obviously their clothes get shrunk, so everything that they've got on them shrinks as well. If she had a cell phone, would it still work?
I don't know.
It's an interesting question.
I'm gonna say, for the sake of
the plot,
the plot, no.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Or it'll get stepped on or something.
Yeah, very possibly. I think the argument would be that all the parts inside work because they're a certain size, so all the tiny pieces becoming smaller would probably render it inoperable.
It would be cool if, like, they do have a plot of trying to get to the phone just so they can communicate with their parents, and like trying to unlock it with like facial recognition when they're so small or something.
Or even if it's not unlocked, the idea that like the touchscreen doesn't render them, so they have to all take their shoes off and all jump on the screen to get it to register it's been pressed.
Yeah, see, this could work.
Because they're too light, you know, so one of them just going that with their hand isn't enough. They have to all at the same time jump on it with their feet.
Right. Maybe their voices are also too small or too quiet for the phone to pick it up. Who knows?
Yeah. Maybe a computer keyboard would be better, because I could buy that they could jump on those keys. It'd take a long time to type something out, because they'd have to go one by one, but...
They probably would have to all climb it too. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Maybe have someone down at the space key, assuming they're heavy enough, which they might not be, but...
Yeah, it could work. You know, now there's Roombas and stuff you have to be afraid of.
Aye, but that's also, if you can get on top of the Roomba, that's a vehicle.
You gotta lasso it.
Look.
I did see, when I looked up the director and I clicked on like upcoming projects, and it does say have a listing for Shrunk, which is with Rick Moranis and Josh Gad as older Nick.
Yeah, I think it's for Disney Plus. I think they're doing a Disney Plus thing. So yeah, Joe Johnston.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Joe Johnston actually is the one who directed this, and he's actually pretty well known because he went on to do The Rocketeer. He did the first Jumanji. He did Jurassic Park 3. And then eventually the first Captain America, which, you know, I'm not particularly fond of. He also did that awful Wolfman movie in 2010, so, you know, he's got some stinkers in him.
Yeah, I didn't really like that movie either. I don't mind Captain America. I think it's a fine film, but as far as the pantheon of the Marvel movies, it's pretty low.
I realize there's a contingency that I'm about to upset, because Rocketeer does have a fan base, but I'm going to say it. This is his best movie. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is Joe Johnston's best movie. I
mean, I have memories of The Rocketeer, but I also have memories of going, that's kind of boring, and I don't want to watch it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very, very hit and miss. But yeah, Shrunk is... Yeah, I remember them announcing this. So yeah, we are getting a new thing in the franchise.
It is pretty crazy to have Rick Moranis, because, you know, I mean, he does do animated stuff. He does voiceover work. So he still, you know, technically works, but you don't really see his face very much. Oh
yeah, he retired from on-screen acting like ages, like decades at this point.
Yeah.
So it is a big deal. Yeah, I have to imagine Disney got a dump truck full of money and like put it up to his front door and said, "Come back for one Honey, I Shrunk the Kids project, please."
It might have been. I wonder if it was when he like, because his wife died when she was real young of breast cancer, and I wonder if he just didn't want to do very much after that.
Yeah, maybe.
Or just raise kids, and not be away because they had kids. So
yeah,
I'm a single dad now. I gotta be with them.
I wonder if he did just a couple of last projects just to make a bit of cash, and then like, that's me, I'm done. I'll just do some voiceover stuff now and spend time with the kids. Yeah, very possibly. Yeah, I don't even know what he looks like now. Like, because that's the thing. He's aged like 20 years since the last time any of us saw him.
He was in a commercial.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah, I want to say for like a Super Bowl commercial, just a few years ago.
Yeah. Well, I have no idea what he looks like now. So, yeah.
He looks like what you would imagine. Like he looks like the same but older.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I wasn't expecting like a huge surprise or anything, but
yeah, it wasn't like shocking or anything, like, oh, it's good to see him, and he looks like like you would expect.
Yeah. So, no, it's good stuff. So yeah. Anyway, where were we?
Yep. I guess we got to do the franchise, right? Because there's a new movie coming out.
It's a good point. I guess we do have to do the franchise. So
whatever. It's not going to be difficult.
I mean, they're easy watches. This was like, they're all like 90 minutes long, which is, some of the movies we watch are like 2.5 hours, depending on what they are. So
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, some of the setup stuff is that Ron, hits the baseball into the attic window, which activates the machine, and Russ, and one of the other things I remember actually is Amy dancing with the mop. That was a distinct visual memory I just always had of this. And like Russ looking through the window being like, huh.
Russ's bloody lip, I remember also as a kid.
Oh sure, yeah, he's got that for a long time. With me.
Yeah.
But he's sort of like looking through the window like, oh, Amy Zielinski. Oh. And then
hormones.
And then Big Russ is walking behind, and he doesn't look at his son first. He looks in at the window and sees her. He's like, what a weird family. And then he looks at his son staring and goes, oh no. Oh, not a Zielinski. No, son. Please no.
Yeah. I definitely relate more to the Zielinski family than I do the macho sports camping, fishing family. My family was never into that kind of stuff. I had nerds for parents.
Oh, sure. And there is some arc stuff here. At the start of the film, like Nick really wants to show his dad that he's built a miniature version of the shrink ray. Mm-hmm. And he's not really got time for him because he's too busy. He's like preparing for this presentation about it, and he kind of fobs him off, and Nick feels a little bit ignored. And there's a bit of the full circle of that is at the end. It's Nick who figures out how it ended up working, because he can't get it to work again at the end, because he never got it working. He doesn't understand how it worked, and every time he tries to use it, he blows up apples and stuff. In fact, one of my favorite jokes in this is actually probably the darkest joke in it. It's towards the end where it's just when they finally tell the neighbors that the kids have been shrunk, and they're explaining this to them. And he's like, how do you know for sure this happened? How do we know he didn't just blow them up? And he's like, well, because if that happened, there'd be pieces of them everywhere. And he's being honest, because that's what happened to the apple. And I thought that was a really funny joke.
Yeah, actually, honestly, like all the adult scenes I looked forward to even more than the kid scenes, even though the kid scenes are like where all this stuff happens. I just really enjoyed the interaction of the adults together in this movie a lot more this time.
Oh yeah, like Russie's thing where, like, so there's a point in the movie where their kids have been missing for a little while, and it escalates naturally where it's like, oh, where are the kids? It's been a couple hours since we've seen them, and like Diane says, oh, ours are missing too, and they're like, oh, if you see them, yeah, so right, but there's a point where they've been missing for a number of hours, and Russie's friend with the camper comes up, and it's like, this is time to go to the fishing trip, and Russ is like bowing his head, and he's like, oh, $80 deposit on the line, blah blah, and he's like, well, what am I going to tell them? And his wife Joyce is like, the kids are missing? That's a pretty fair thing.
The truth, and he's like, something they'll understand.
And he's like, what kind of an excuse is that? So he comes out and goes, oh, the wife is sick. She's not feeling too good, early menopause or something. She's not doing very well. And I'm like,
stuff.
What is this? Your kids are missing, and they will understand.
Yeah, he's got some weird pride thing that he can't quite get over. It's It's pretty bizarre.
And of course, yeah, we should probably mention as well, like, one of the things that they talk about early on when he's talking about Little Russ is that Little Russ is been cut from the football team. We later find out he chose to quit rather than be cut, but they're talking about him being too small for football, and obviously it's a bit wink wink because he's going to shrink, right? The whole movie's about kids getting really small. But you have to mention the foreshadowing a little bit with that. And I'm sure there's a couple of other lines with some of the other characters about feeling small, or
something Ron says when he says it when they're already small to Amy. I can't quite remember, but I made note of it because in my brain, like, remember this, Tara, because this is foreshadowed. I can't remember what it was now.
Yeah, it's when Russ is saying about him being too small. He's not too small for football. His wife goes, when you say things like that and he hears it makes him feel this small. She does like a really specific on the nose, like, oh, okay. Very good movie, very good. But all of his antics, like when he's getting mad at the police when they eventually call the police to report the missing kids, and he feels like, wait, are you judging me? What's the uh-huhs? Are you attacking me? Are you saying that this is our fault? Like, he's very entertaining in how aggressive he be, in a fun way. He's
right. Yeah,
very comical.
He just has a lot of masculine pride.
Yes. Although none of it's aged badly. Like I think there's a risk when you
think so. No.
When you watch like a masculine character like this, you're kind of expecting him to say something that maybe hasn't aged in 30 years that well. But I don't think it ever crossed any lines. It was all very.
No, it was still very much the classic, almost cliche of my son needs to be me but better. Like,
yeah.
This is what I remember about being a boy, about being great at being in high school, and if he's just like me, then he could be better.
And it was something for him to have a bit of an arc over, so by the end he'll accept these kids for who they are, and but
just what's more important.
And I would have forgiven it, like a movie from 1989. I would have forgiven it if he said something slightly dodgy once or twice. I would have been like, yeah, whatever. Like I get it, different time, but there isn't actually
really that comes up. Yeah,
nothing I noticed certainly. So no, that's fine. But he's like, those kids are grounded. My $80 deposit is gone.
That's a lot of money. A lot of dough, especially in 1989.
In 1989, it's a lot. Like, so sometimes I get a little depressed when they complain about the price of something and it sounds so cheap, like by today's standards.
We watch Twilight Zone.
And they're like, oh my god, 10 cents for this, and I'm like, that's like $3 now.
Oh, inflation.
Pulp Fiction's the worst of it. When John Travolta's like $5 milkshake, and I'm like, oh my, that's like the cheapest milkshake you could probably get now in a restaurant. And he's like going on about this $5 milkshake, and I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yep.
How
it
times
wasn't even that long ago.
Yeah, how times have changed. Well, we're in the middle of an inflation crisis right now, so I mean things are all skyrocketing.
Yes, sir.
So Big Russ is one of the standouts for sure. I think
Big Russ and Ron, I think, were my favorites watching it this time. Sure,
yeah, I can see that. I think the Selenskys, in comparison, the adults specifically, I'm just going to stick with here. What I liked about them is I actually kind of felt because it's like, okay, mom and dad had a fight last night and we hear about this, and she's not coming home till after work, and she's like a real estate agent, she's selling houses, whatever. And she comes in, and but early on when he's like saying goodbye to them, when he's leaving to the kids, he's like, all right, make sure you mow the lawn, and Amy, get this place spick and span. And he looks around and goes, good luck, because it looks like a complete mess.
Well, you see her cooking earlier, and she's just like throwing eggs over her shoulder.
It's very clear that this is the first time she's done this because mum's not there, and that's why she's making an absolute mess of it. Even the dog's not wanting her cooking. But but I think what I liked about this is that when Diane comes home, right, and Wayne has a line where he's like, yeah, we wanted to make things nice for you, so that's why I told the kids to that's why the kids clean things up. And she looks around and goes, I see. Because there's like dishes piled up out the sink, and there's stuff lying about everywhere, like it's not tidy at all. No. And it kind of shows you how like unobservant like Wayne is, that because he says it as if they did it, as if I told him to do it so it's done, And I'm like, dude, look with your eyes.
Yeah. You've just made extra work for her.
Yeah. But I think that felt really natural to me, because this is exactly the sort of thing that would piss off like the mother in the house if she's expected to be doing all this stuff and like everything's in chaos because he's not helping.
Yeah, you know, when I'm watching this one now, when I think it's Amy that says mom and dad had a fight, and then like Nick looks over like, when's mom coming home or something like that. I'm like, oh, is there like a fight? I don't remember like the parents being like threatened for divorce or something, or kids being afraid of that, of separation. But like, yeah, she's like, oh yeah, mom and dad got in a fight, so she stayed at her mom's house last night. And then when you see Diane, she doesn't like come off as mad about anything, and she really should be mad about a lot of stuff.
It kind of comes off like she's already over what the fight was, and she's wanting to like reconcile the next day, and then obviously once the kids are in trouble, it's like, oh well, everything else is not important now because the kids are in danger.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be fair, like I like the kind of, because you know Wayne gets mad when his presentation doesn't go very well and he smashes up the machine after. He's like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to get my old job back. We're going to like fix the household. Like he is very kind of like, I realize me working on this dream project has completely like ruined the house, and you've been through hell because of it, and that's my bad, and I'm quitting now. Obviously, the irony being that he needs to fix it now because the kids are in trouble. But yeah. So
yeah, that's true. I guess I just was expecting like a bit more antagonism between the two parents because of the setup in the beginning, but that's really not the case. Like, they're over pretty quickly, and the kids maybe just have a different perspective because they're kids. And I don't know. I actually really like the mom in the movie, though. Like, sometimes I think she should be a lot more upset than she is, but also like, it is really nice that she's super grounded because Wayne is kind of insane.
He's the opposite,
and, like,
yeah.
so goofy, you know?
Yeah, because she comes home after looking for the kids at the mall, and she comes in, and Wayne's since discovered that they've shrunk, and he's got these like headlights on his helmet, and she comes in and says, you know, where are the kids? And she's just seen the police car outside next door because they've called the police for their kids, and she gets really worried. She comes in, and she's like, I'm looking for the kids, and she's like, we're in a coal mine? And he's like, no, in the backyard. They're in the backyard, and she gets all excited. And he's like, but there's something I need to tell you. Here's the couch, and he shows her the couch that's shrunk. He's like, and she's like, oh, this is great. Your machine works. Yeah, it's great, but there's some bad news too. What's that? I shrunk the kids. And she's like, what? They're in the backyard somewhere. What? And I love the way she just sort of keeps getting louder with the what's as he's saying more and more. I do love the police say, you know, did you report some missing children? Because Diane at this point has phoned the police. And he's like, oh, there must be some mistake. Ours are in the backyard. And then Diane just faints behind them.
The cops have a pretty small part in this, but I actually do enjoy their interaction as well. I think they fit the tone in the movie really well. You know, they're not like stereotype cops or anything that we get a lot now. They're just very, reported missing kids. Like, they're probably just out partying and not telling their parents. The usual stuff. I
mean, Nicky's a bit young for that type of malarkey, but
yeah, that's true.
No, I love all the sort of glimpses because you see he makes like this counterweight with the TV so he can like swing above the yard without touching it, and he's sort of looking for the kids and so on and so on. I love all of the moments where he gets caught, like, you know, when he's climbing back on the fence because he realizes he shouldn't walk on the grass, so he's like sort of trying to like climb along the fence, like he's like on a jungle gym or something. And the neighbors are just staring at him. Later on, Lucy from Twin Peaks like sees him floating a little bit and goes, "There's a man over there flying," and just like there's a lot of just weird stuff that people sort of shrug and go, "Oh, he's a bit weird." There's weird stuff going on over there.
Right. Where I'm like the Zelinskys, where I would look over at the campers and the fishing rods and be like, "That's a weird family."
Yeah. Well, he does come off a bit manic though when the couple come over for the keys to the house or whatever it is, or the paperwork, and he's like, "Get off the grass!" as he's climbing on the clothesline.
Yeah.
And then instead of telling them anything resembling the truth, he just goes, the lawn's very delicate. You have to, take care of it." Oh yeah,
everyone keeps commenting on how their lawn is like super overgrown and stuff. It looks fine.
Yeah, it didn't look overgrown to me either. Because at one point there's a plot point later where after a bit of an adventure when they've been flying on the bee, Nikki says, "How do you know we're still in my yard?" And he goes, "Well, because any other lawn would be shorter."
Shorter.
And I'm like, it doesn't feel that long. Like when you see it,
Really.
yeah, I don't know.
It looks fine.
Yeah, maybe they wanted it to be longer, but it hadn't grown enough by the time they started shooting, so they just had to keep it consistent at that point.
Maybe the 80s people just like half inch. That's how long a blade of grass should be in your lawn. It was a lot more strict back then.
Yeah, it's a minor quibble, but it is definitely something that popped in my head a couple times. And then of course you have the adventure itself with the kids, and thinking they can get there by dark, and then that because they end up having to spend the night in a Lego piece, and all the various little set pieces that happen along the way, such as the river, which is probably just dog piss or something, the sprinklers which come down like meteors, like hitting them, so they have to run and hide from that. The fact that the dog can hear them because the dog has better hearing than the humans is an interesting little thing, although the cat from the next door gets in the way of that rescue attempt.
Dang kitties.
Yeah. I was still on the cat's side. I was like, yeah, scare the dog.
Oh, come on. Your cats would eat you if you shrank. Snackums.
So yeah, so you have that. You have the set piece where they find the big cookie, which I always thought looked great as a kid. Like I always like, I want to just put my hand in the big cream bit.
Just want to roll around in an Oreo.
Yeah. Like this looks great. And obviously they're starving by that point, so yeah, they definitely want that. But a lot of the banter between them is quite good though, because when they get separated into the two like different pairs, so it's it's Amy with Ron, and it's Russ with Nikki after the bee thing where they fly around in the bee, and she ends up falling for Russ because he keeps jumping in to save her or Nikki. He keeps being a hero, so that's why she falls for him. But when they're separated, there's a moment where Ron's being this little shit. He's like, you know what? We're going to sue your family for everything you're worth. You're going to have nothing left. We're going to take you all the way to the jail cell. And then Amy turns.
Nikki and Ron do not get along.
No,
it's established very early in the movie.
It's great chemistry though, because she turns around and says, my dad's device works, which means we're probably going to end up being really rich. And then he immediately goes, I've always liked your family. Your dad's a cool guy. He's not that weird. Just little things like that. Because after
a little change of attitude, real quick.
Yeah, after they clean up a little bit, and she's like washing herself in the water, she comes over and calls for a truce, but she's got mud on her hands, and then just sort of wipes it all over his hands. And the smirk she's got on her face is she's just flicking mud on his hand. And singing a little song to herself is just very enjoyable.
Yeah, he deserves it.
Oh, he does, yes. But he is the one that has the idea to use the ant that they come across and use a bit of cookie to, wrangle it and control it as a horse-like device to try and get back to the house.
Stick, yeah. For Auntie, it's just a baby ant.
Yes. And then that evil scorpion shows up and kills it.
Man, oh man, that was tough. I don't know about you, but I was watching the movie and I was like, I think I remember that Auntie dies, but I can't remember how. I washed that scene out of my brain or something until the scorpion showed up, and then everything came flooding back, and I went, oh no. And then when it actually does happen, it's devastating, because the ant, you just fall in love with the ant, It may look ugly, but it makes this cooing noise all the time. And it clearly has a bond with the kids. It got me.
Yeah, it kind of protects them as well in this fight, and then they all grab some sticks and whatnot and fight it off, but not enough to save him. He gets stabbed. You actually see the tail of the scorpion stab it.
You see the hole too.
Yeah. So I guess because it's an ant, it's fair game. It doesn't have to be R-rated for this, because it's a big.
It's pretty rough though.
Yeah, it's a big practical effect though. So, yeah, they've got a practical ant, but obviously they have some stop motion for the scorpion and the ant when they're fighting. So you get a kind of an old school movie vibe from it, which is.
Yeah, it feels kind of like watching them.
Yeah.
But you like the ants.
Yeah, that's neat. I have a good time with it.
And it makes a much more pleasing sound than they do in them.
What's interesting is that Diane actually is a little concerned that her teenage daughter's with the teenage boy from next door, spending the night together. And I actually felt like she was being a bit judgmental, because she sort of says it like with little Russ, like I'm like, wait, do you think he's like trouble or something especially?
I don't know. I kind of feel like she just knows her daughter.
Ah, yeah, okay.
Also.
You think it's the daughter's got a bit of a history at this point, do you?
Well, I mean, she's boy crazy. She knows that. She's trying to meet up with some other guy at the mall. Who she thinks is going to ask her to the dance.
I did like, there's a little bit halfway through where she clearly is starting to bond with Russ a little bit. So when she says, oh, maybe we can still get back in time for me to go to the mall, and she pauses and goes, oh, to meet up with Linda. She sort of like swerves and makes it clear that she'd be meeting up with a girl rather than the guy she was going to meet. So
hormones, can't trust him.
Yeah. So they bond, and like he's clearly already had a thing for her, and she's like, I was too popular to notice, so this has brought her down to earth, literally, you might say. I didn't even mean that, but that was good.
Well, I think, is this around the time where he saves her anyway?
This is after he saves her.
Happens,
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So it's after he saves her. Yeah, it's just when they're lying in the Lego piece that they have this conversation about having feelings and never talking to each other. It's because he thought, oh, you were too popular, you wouldn't have noticed me, and she kind of admits, yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
But it's okay, because they kiss, and the little brothers make fun of them, and
I like that the little brothers are bonding now too, because they definitely hated each other in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. So the final thing in the morning is that just as they're fixing the machine upstairs, the neighbor kid from somewhere else in the street, who instead of mowing the lawn himself, decided to convince. Well, it's not just that. He convinced this other kid that he was letting him do something cool by using the remote control lawn, and even said that the kid would give him like a box of cookies or something. Like, so he was getting paid from this other kid to allow him to mow his lawn. So he's a little
smart,
little entrepreneur, shall we say, little hustler. But obviously this is before they're small, so he comes back the next morning and starts mowing the lawn with the and obviously this is, it's sucking things up. There's blades swirling around. It's like, so obviously we get a whole chaotic moment where the Selinskys realize and run out and have to yell at him to stop mowing the lawn. And
it's the most dangerous hurricane ever.
Nick almost gets caught up in it and sucked up, and they're all holding on to him. Luckily though, it's after this that the dog Quark comes out and gets them all on board. They all cling on to him, and he runs into the house up to the breakfast table, and Wayne's like, the kids are smart, they're making their way here. And of course, like, Nick's already in the bowl of Cheerios, like in the middle of the whole sort of like going, hey, don't eat me, Dad, don't eat me.
It's the classic scene. And this is what I mean when I'm like, this is probably like the darkest death that you could think of, is being eaten by your own father.
Yeah, you would think, knowing the situation, he would be checking his food before he starts eating it, just in case. Just in case, because they're that small, they might have snuck in. You don't know what journey they've been on, but of course Quark pulls at his leg, and it's enough to make him notice something, and he gets the magnifying glass out, and happy days. So they get the neighbours over, who are of course already pissed that they found out about all the shrinking business, which is actually a sweet moment when it happens, because both Diane and Wayne are on the swing thing that he's concocted to search the garden, and she notices them looking stressed, and she's like, we should tell them, like, we have to tell them, like, we can't just keep it from them. So it's a moment of genuine concern and sympathy, rather than they find out because they stumble onto it, and like it's a moment of conflict. So
no, I agree. And the wives and the mothers, they have this understanding right away, and they believe and are concerned. But of course, the big rush is appalled that they would try to trick them into thinking that their kids were actually shrunk.
Yeah, so obviously they're testing it on fruit and whatever, and it's not working still. And the kids, have to mime what happened and how it worked the first time, and somehow figuring out the baseball came in and hit a switch, like, gives Wayne the idea. What I thought was strange is that Russ is like, no, test it on me first before you aim at the kids. You're not like risking the kids. But I thought, wait a minute.
Test it on food first.
Yeah, you've not tested it on a non-living thing first. Like, test it on a non-living thing. Once that's successful, then you can test it on Big Russ to make sure it works on a human.
He realizes his mistake about a nanosecond before he gets shrunk.
Yeah. But it works, of course, and Joyce is like, "Oh, you're so brave," and she's looking down at him when he's tiny. But yeah, so that's the. As long as it's happy enough, they all get raised to normal size again, and they're hugging each other.
Well, maybe not Big Russ because his hat doesn't fit quite right.
Oh sure, yeah. But you got little Russ looking over at Amy as they're hugging their parents, and it's like, okay, everyone's happy, and the big Russ puts out his hand to shake Wayne's hand, and that's kind of your proper ending. Obviously there's a little epilogue scene, but that's your end of your story where everyone's grown and come together as a happy family. With the joke ending being, and this is kind of I guess the hint that they built upon for the second movie, is that if we can shrink things, then can you make things bigger too? And that's what they've done at, I think it's Thanksgiving. They're having dinner together, both families.
The turkey's like the size of the table.
Yeah. I'm like, a regular sized turkey would have fed all of you. It's not, you didn't really need to do this. This is just for show.
Yeah, well, what if everybody wants the same cut of meat?
Yeah. And you've got, the teenagers are, with their feet under the table and looking at each other all lovey-dovey. And Quark's got a giant dog bone that they've given him. How sweet is that?
I love the practical effect also of when they grab onto Quark and like the dog hair is all like thick and kind of like wire-like. I like that effect too. That also was a memory that was triggered from watching this again, was just the way that the dog fur looked when it was up close. Yeah,
but they even talk about them running away from the broom, actually. Before they go out to the back of the garden, and they all grab onto the broom.
I guess it's kind of similar.
Yeah,
to
it's
that,
similar.
yeah,
it's just all these straight, threads, because that's how small they are.
And the slide of the pan when they're sliding into it, and all the giant dust bunnies that are covering them, and nails and stuff.
Oh yeah, it definitely looked disgusting. Like I was definitely, being triggered with the shower I'd have after this experience would be immense and thorough.
Sure.
Probably burn those clothes while I'm at it. I mean, their clothes are all wrecked by the time they get back anyway. They're all ripped and torn and...
Oh yeah, everything's going in the trash.
Yeah, so that's what it is. The final moment though is so back when little Russ gave Amy mouth to mouth when she drowned a little bit. Afterwards, Nick says, "Where did you learn to do that?" And Russ goes, "Oh, French class, kid." And he's like, "French class?" He doesn't quite get it. And it's at the very end of the movie. It does that. It's almost a trope, actually. It's, someone finally gets a joke right at the last second, and he just goes, "Wait, now I get it. French class, ha!" And then it goes to credits.
Yep.
That's
bleep, bleep, bleep. That's all, folks.
Yeah. Yeah, you actually get the circle. Yeah, the black
the
circle.
Looney Tunes, yeah.
Yeah, it's delightful.
Super fun.
Yeah, like everything about it works. It's almost a shame they went straight to doing the big kid for the second movie. I get why they did it, but like you could just put like the shrunk people in different locations and it would be a completely different movie just based on the things that they would encounter.
Is that what the TV show is about?
No, the TV show is like they get shrunk in the first episode and the movie's already happened, but the TV show is just like different wacky inventions and stuff. It's like a comedy sci-fi show basically.
Okay, I can see that working too, just like a Zelinsky family.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I remember there was a 2-part where they time travel. So yeah, it goes wacky, All
right, I'm sure that's fun. Yep, still really enjoyed it. I don't know what to say without a co-host.
Are you panicking? It sounds like you're panicking.
I just sort of went blank there. Don't know what to say.
Oh, Garrus was clawing at the door. I had to take care of business.
I'll do it again. Kitty cats.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's super fun time. Obviously, there's not as much to analyze necessarily, but there is little things here or there. Obviously, you've got the Zelinskys bonding over the course of the movie. You've got the rivalry between Russ and Wayne. Although it's not really a rivalry on Wayne's side, it's just Russ who doesn't like Wayne. I mean, at the start of the movie, he's like, "It's Saturday, you should let us sleep in, all this banging. I'm going to break his arm." Like, he's like super aggressive and stuff.
Yeah.
But
and then he immediately goes and yells at the kids for sleeping in.
Yeah. Yes. The hypocrisy, you might say. That's one of the funny jokes actually, is when they go to tell Amy about the ball going in the window. Little Russ says, "Don't worry, he'll pay for it. It'll come out of his allowance." And you go, "It's not coming out of my allowance." And then Little Russ goes, "Oh, I guess Dad'll pay for it then." And then Ron just goes, "It'll come out of my allowance."
I'd be afraid of Russ if he was my dad.
Yeah. Well, I've got
so intense.
I mean, maybe not now because he knows what happened, but like, I suspect if it was their fault they missed the fishing trip, that $80 deposit would be coming straight out of their allowance.
Yeah.
As a lesson. But
yeah, I like the bonding that happens. Like all the relationships get mended. Everybody's happily ever after at the end. The husband and wives are cool with each other. The neighbors are cool with each other. The kids all have this bond, and even a relationship has grown out of it. And it's very sweet, And
obviously,
feel good movie.
Some of the pairs of kids have more of a bond. Obviously, Amy and Russ have the biggest bond, perhaps. But Amy's got a lot with Ron as well. Russ saves Nicky once or twice and looks after him, so they've got a little bit of something. And the two younger brothers, like they both kind of don't hate each other by the end. So like every combination of the pairs all have growth.
Yeah, and it feels worth like it was deserved also from watching the movie.
Yeah.
Feels like it was earned.
Yeah, and it's not like super huge growth. It's not like I think this movie doesn't work if like their beef with each other is like more severe at the start. I think because it's just typical. It's just dumb kid stuff and like dumb. My neighbor's noisy. I think he's weird. It's all low stakes, and I think that's why it all works. Because I think if it was all, like that neighbor like stole my first wife or something, like it wouldn't work.
No, they're all just like suburban families that just are very different from each other.
Yeah,
typical. Also, I guess when you have neighbors that are just peering in, like trying to see what's going on, and they don't understand it, therefore it's wrong.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is a bunch of first world problems that they're all having, and then it all gets sorted out by the end. So
very fun, very cool movie. I also really enjoyed watching the animated opening credits. You kind of brought it up earlier, but I guess this was just more of a thing before, because this one and Christmas Vacation and like Pink Panther stand out to me as far as like this comedic little animated short that's going on while the credits are happening. I suppose it just kind of went away for some reason very quickly after this. Maybe it's a bit left over from like the early 60s and 50s where the opening credits would just have everything.
I was going to say, like, the three examples you gave, including this one, were very spread out there. That was the 60s, the 80s, and, well, this is still the 80s, but it's almost the 90s, so it's a very spread out set of examples. So I guess maybe it was just like not a constant thing, but yeah, it was frequent enough. Whereas like nowadays, like, you don't really get like the cartoon opening that sort of like does like a joke version of the plot, or maybe gives you like a tease of what the plot's going to be with its opening. You're right. It's not really done anymore. It was kind of nice seeing it again after all this time. And then freaking out because this is the first time I've watched the movie. And this is the thing, I've known who Stuart Gordon and Brian Usna are since I was a teenager, so it maybe gives you a hint of how long it's been since I watched this. I was probably, maybe just only double digits the last time I watched these movies, but I saw them a lot as a kid. So the fact that I watched this now and went, wait, Stuart Gordon and Brian Usna?
Yeah.
That meant something to me this time.
Yeah, I was just watching the credits. I couldn't believe it. But then after watching the movie, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see it.
Yeah.
I can see how this started off as a Gordon and Usna collaboration.
Yeah, it does almost make me want to see Herbert West's like version of it, where he's the delusional scientist who actually doesn't care if he gets the kids killed.
We should get like an animated series or something, with Herbert West in it. You can make a kid like or more like a grown-up kid.
There may have been.
What was the mad scientist show that was on Cartoon Network for a while?
Oh, Pinky and the Brain?
No.
Dexter's Lab?
Yes.
There you go.
It'd be like a little Dexter's Laboratory, but with with Herbert West. Maybe that's why I think it would work, because that show was pretty good.
I want to say there was a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids cartoon at one point. Obviously, it wasn't Herbert West. It was just, based on the movie, but...
Oh, maybe.
I want to say there was, but I've got an image in my head of a cartoon, like, cover. I don't know. Weird.
Can't think of it.
Yeah.
Maybe there's like a short or something that came out.
Yeah, maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's not like a series, but
This movie had a short before it. I mean, not in the version that I watched, but the VHS one did.
oh sure, yeah, Disney have been doing that for a long time, yeah. No. Yeah. So yeah, I think that the key thing I would take away from this, other than just the fun practical effects, which obviously give it a lot of its adventure, but I think it's just the fact that I think all the characters work. I think all 4 kids work, all 4 parents work, and that's what makes this work as a movie. Is they're all likable and funny, and that's what makes it work. And I think that's what's missing from more modern attempts at movies like this. You know, take away the shrinking stuff. I feel like characters just feel a bit more bland now for whatever reason, and I mean, maybe it's just they're just too afraid to be a little cartoony with it. Because I think that's what makes this work, is that Wayne's a little cartoony. You know?
Oh yeah.
You know, Russ is a bit tropey in his, like, you know, archetypes, but it works because
Even the housewives are, you know.
yeah, to an extent, yeah.
Well, I mean, she's a real estate agent, so she's not really a housewife, but even the wives are kind of tropey.
So no, it's cool. But yeah, there you go. That's Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I guess we'll rate the movie out of 10. What are you giving it?
I mean, I really love the film. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think it's, as far as kid adventure films, it doesn't really get much better. And it might be my favorite. This one and Never Ending Story. Never Ending Story I probably put higher than this, but I think this movie is just so fun, such an easy watch, and I think all the actors are great. So and the characters are great.
I think Never Ending Story is an interesting comparison, because I would say Never Ending Story feels darker than this, and not just because of the horse scene, right? But even just the tone of that and the nothing.
You have to bring it up.
I feel like the tone of that movie, though, and the nothingness is like consuming this fantasy world. Like that movie feels like it's about depression. Like it actually feels like it's hitting some hard themes. Whereas I would say that the comparison.
I haven't watched it since I was like very young, so I'm sure that I would see a lot more now.
So, but I think the comparison, like, I think this is maybe it is fair to compare this to something like a Goonies or films of that ilk, because they're going for that fun kind of nostalgic feeling vibe of the you know, because I think Never Ending Story it's intentionally going for something very different, even though it is technically still a kid's adventure movie in a way, but it's a kid who's like depressed and like feeling struggled, and that's why he's like diving into a book,
bullied a lot,
and his dad's not really understanding him, and there's some really emotional stuff there, whereas this movie never tries to be emotional. That's not what this is doing. This is something else. So but it's an interesting point of comparison to bring up. Yeah, I'm actually going to agree with you. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 as well. I think it's for what this movie sets out to do. It is a great movie, and it is full of likable, fun characters that play off each other very nicely. When I watched that a second time this week, because we pushed the recording back, I thought, oh, is this going to be a bit of a chore to watch twice, like so close together? And it wasn't, honestly. It worked quite well.
It's super easy to watch.
So, no.
And it's on Disney Plus, so it made it even easier.
Yeah, so it's a super fun time. That is Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So yeah, I suppose we will come back and do the sequels.
Yeah, we should.
In a bit.
Main channel? Maybe the second one. That was a big theater release.
We'll see. Well, just give us your opinions in the comments about should these be main episodes or bonus Patreon episodes, the sequels, because
maybe the second.
That's a bit weird though, to do the second one on regular, but then do the third one on bonus, and then the new one.
That's how we get him, Peter.
Yeah, but then the new one, would be back to regular. Because we're not going to do the new one as a bonus movie. The new one would have to be on the main channel.
Maybe.
I don't know. Anywho, and I say main channel because I'm thinking YouTube. Obviously, if you listen to the audio feed, I just mean the audio feed. So there you go. Next time we have another vote winner, because this one got delayed a bit. So we're doing this month's vote winner, which is Flash Gordon, which neither of us have never seen. So yeah,
nope, not seen it.
We'll see how that is. I expect cheese, of course. I expect a lot of Queen songs, but other than that, I really don't know anything about it. So
I'm expecting Zardoz, but with Queen.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if that happens. Zardoz got quite boring after some wacky shit at the start. So
yeah, it was super promising.
Yeah. So we'll see how Flash Gordon shapes up.
It does come back at the end, though.
A little bit. It comes back a little bit, but the opening like 15-20 minutes are really funny,
Like perfect. It's
and
perfect
great.
film, yeah.
And then it just kind of gets dull, and it's like a bad Star Trek episode where like he's in like this community on a planet somewhere, you know.
Right.
I mean, he's not actually on a different planet, but I just mean like in a Star Trek episode, that's what it would be.
It feels like a Star Trek thing, yeah. I'm sure we talked about it.
But yeah, so Flash Gardens, the next episode, so look forward to that. In about a week. Maybe less than a week's time. It kind of depends, because we did this one kind of late, so the next one may be a little bit quicker. But we're squeezing in the Patreon bonus episode before it, so we'll see. But look out for that. Yeah, so I'll take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you very much to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Bordeaux, Christopher Moy, David Brown, Al Tradesman, and Alison M. Fordyce. But of course, you can get other things at Patreon, can't you, Tara?
That's right, Peter. If you guys enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/mildfuzztv, where you can find our reviews of possibly the sequels to this film, plus Zardos, I think, was on there. Maybe not. Maybe that's main channel. And you can see our reviews of... We did some Stuart Gordon stuff, right? Robot Jocks was on there.
We did Robot Jocks. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that was Stuart Gordon. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Stuart Gordon.
Okay. Yeah.
We did it specifically because I had just watched Reanimator for the first time, and I said, I want to watch more of this guy's work.
Okay. And what about the other bonus monthly show?
We also do a new show where we just sort of talk about what we've been watching that's not sci-fi related. And yeah, get to know us a little bit better, I guess. There might be some trivia involved, some story time, and that show is called Ace Meltdown, and it's over on Patreon at the $5 tier.
That is correct. I was worried you weren't going to get to the title. I thought you need to say the title, Tara. You were kind of putting it off. Yeah, what we're going to do is the first episode we went up this month. When episode 2 goes up in Patreon, we're going to put out the first episode for free for everyone on YouTube. So you can check out what it's like.
You can get a little taste.
See if you like it. But it will be exclusive to the $5 tier on Patreon, episode 2 onwards. Or if you want the first one now, it's there and ready to watch. Or listen to. You get the audio version too. So yeah, go check out all that stuff. You also hit the super thanks button on YouTube. You can like, share, comment. I was going to say describe there, not describe. I mean, you can describe if you want.
Describe how we did.
Yes. And of course, all the other usual buttons I tell you to click. It does help out a lot. And hit the bell next to the subscribe button if you want the notifications on Male Fuzz Movies, if you want to always be notified when a new review or episode of this or Screams goes up. But please do.
And maybe speaking of Screams, I don't know if you want to mention it or not, but we did say that we were going to do Nope next, but that's going to be on Screams now.
You know what? We pushed this back that I'd forgotten that was even something we may have to explain. Yeah.
So if anybody was looking forward to Nope, it is coming, but it'll be on the Screams channel.
Well, it's not a different channel, yes, but it's going to be on Screams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scream Show.
Yeah.
So check that out.
Yeah, so that'll be coming up in a couple of months' time on Screams. So yeah, look forward to that then. But that is the show. That is the Atomic Cinema Experiment. Thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction movies and computer add salsa.